أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر وإن يروا آية يعرضوا ويقولوا سحر مستمر وكذبوا واتبعوا أهواءهم وكل أمر مستقر ولقد جاءهم من الأنباء ما فيه مزدجر حكمة بالغة فما تغني النذر فتول عنهم يوم يدعو الداعي إلى شيء نكر خش عن أبصارهم يقول الكافرون هذا يوم عسر. Today inshallah we're going to go through Surah Al-Qamar, and this is the third of 3 surahs we're covering, with the purpose and intention and objective of looking at some of the arguments, persuasive style, linguistic features, structural elements of the Quran in relation to making a case for 3 things in particular. Who remembers those 3 things? Yes?
Who Allah is?
Okay, but more specifically, yes?
God's existence.
God's existence, the existence of Allah. Yeah?
Why Allah is worthy of being worshipped.
Why Allah is being worthy of being worshipped, and see from the sisters.
I'm coming.
Yeah. The authority of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The authority of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why the Prophet is a true Prophet. Why is it that we believe he is a true Prophet? So these are the 3 things we're concentrating on when we're looking at these 3 surahs. So guys, can we just have silence? So basically, we were looking at 2 or 3 different things. Number 1, as we've said before, yes, was the structural coherence. Who remembers some things we've said about the structural coherence of the Quran?
That it's
Pardon?
like how it's like relative to the surah next to it.
Yeah. Perfect. So there is a connection between the surah, yes?
I was going to add to that. I was going to say how you said it. You said that when you look at the Quran, it looks like a cluster of stars, and then you go closer, and it actually looks like constellations because they're related together in some different ways. Like some
Beautiful.
in one way, and then some start in a similar way.
Excellent. So how did the last surah end? What was the last surah in the first place? No? Not Surah Al-Najm. Okay, and how do you remember how this surah ended? Does anyone have the Quran with them? You can bring out a translation of it. Pardon? Yeah, Fasjudullah wa abdu. But before that, what were we talking about? What themes were at the end of the last surah? We're looking at Surah Al-Najm here, the last of Surah Al-Najm. Yeah, so what kind of things is it saying? Give us examples of something in the last. Okay. 54. Okay, beautiful, good. Okay, great. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, that's good. It's a good answer, alhamdulillah. So she was talking about some of the connections between the beginning of the end of Surah Al-Najm, for example, that is mentioned. Like there's a cosmological theme. In the beginning it starts with a Najm, and it ends, it starts with kind of like a Najm. A Sha'ra is one of the Najum, and in the beginning it's when Najm ila Hawa. So there is a connection between the two. Here we're still in the sama, we're still in the sky. And what we're talking about in particular here, the Qamar. When you look in the sky, what do you see? You see the Najm, or the Najum, and you see the Qamar as well. So it's a nighttime theme. Okay, it's a nighttime theme, you see. So اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. So the translation is the hour has drawn near and the moon has been cleft asunder. We're talking about one of the miracles of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is inshiqaq al-qamar, or the splitting of the Qamar. Now, interestingly, it's been used on both sides of the argument here in the world of apologetics. Some people, they come and say, well, actually, this is an argument for the prophethood of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they say that, look, I mean, this is one of the physical miracles. You guys demand physical miracles. It was witnessed by the Sahaba of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the companions of the Prophet, and so therefore, I mean, for example, look at the Christian tradition. The Christian tradition, their strongest miracles or their strongest evidences are their miracles. They say, look, Jesus done this, Jesus was resurrected. This is their strongest arguments. I mean, I was reading a book. I think the guy's name was Lee Strobel. It's one of the ones that William Lane Craig recommends. One of the top guys from the Christian world. Top guys. And one of the key arguments they always use is the resurrection of Jesus Christ, a historical incident. So imagine, this is the highest level of argumentation. Historical incidents. And so here we have in Inshiqaq al-Qamar, we say, look, you think you've got, miracles, we've got miracles. And in fact, not only do we have miracles, our miracles are something which is testified by a sanad, which is sahih, where it has an authentic transmission. Whereas your Bible is not transmitted authentically. However, they will say this, and this is the counter argument. I want you to be aware of them. They'll say, look, the moon, if it was really cleft asunder and split into two, surely there would have been so many people that would have seen this. How comes, we only find a few people that see this, and it's only in the Arabian Peninsula? You see the argument here? They will say that how comes it's only these people here that have witnessed it? Why don't we find so many scattered reports in history? Now the answer to this is twofold. Some people have attempted to find this Indian prince or this and that and historical things which are all problematic. I'll have to be honest with you and say. The better answer is this. What's the population of the world today? 8 billion, let's say. 8 billion. That's 2022. What was the population of the world 100 years ago? About 1 billion. Maybe less than that. So the population of the world has gone up almost 10 times in the span of 100 years. Now, the question is, what would be the population, do you think, of the world? We don't have exact figures. Historians can guess. But what do you think the population of the world is going to be 1,400 years ago? Before globalization, before technological advancements, before planes, trains, automobiles. Maybe if we're lucky, 80 million. The whole world is the population of one country, which is not one of the biggest ones. You're lucky you get 80 million, 100 million. And I think that's that's a fair guess. Now, let's just say for the sake of argument that you're in the Arabian Peninsula and it's night time. Yes, there are people that are obviously going to sleep. But then there are people in countries where it's not even night time yet. Like we know we're Saudi Arabia now, right? What time is it here? It's like 8:10, yes? Yeah. Okay, what time is it in the UK? It is like, I don't know, 5 o'clock or something. Maybe it's Maghrib now. It's not a great example because it's short nights. But but for the most part of the year, it will be night time in one place and it will be daytime in another. So they don't even see the night. In Australia, there wasn't even a civilization there probably. And if there was, they didn't see the night. There are places in the world they didn't even see the night. So the idea that, of let's say 80 million, 100 million people, maybe 50%, maybe 60% of the people, they weren't even seeing the night. The rest of the people, they were ummis. They weren't all historians. Because the idea is that everyone's a historian waiting to see the cosmos. And the question is, how long did this Inshiqaq al-Qamar take place for? How long do you reckon it took place for? 5 hours? 3 hours? Lahza wahida. It took place for a very short period of time, 3 seconds. If I saw something what I thought would be the moon going like this, in 3 seconds, I wouldn't think, oh yeah, that happened, yeah. I would doubt myself. I'll say, I think I saw something. I'll go to my friend and say, I saw that, brother, what you've been drinking, yeah. That's what would happen. That's the reality of the situation. So the strongest argument is, I think, our argument. We are saying that this happened. We have witness testimony. All of it is sahih hadith, all of these kind of things. And it rivals any of the strongest things that these guys say that they have. For example, the Christian tradition. I want you to, and I was reading this surah, and a very interesting thing about the structure of this surah. We talked about the structure. I'll tell you now. Actually, I'll ask you first. Every ayah in this surah, there's something significant about its ending. I want to give you 30 seconds to try and work this out. Look at each surah, each ayah in this surah. There's something significant about the ending of each ayah. Tell me what you think it is. I'll give you 1 minute. This Najm, yeah, Surah Al-Najm. Yes. Huh? No, that's sorry, not Najm. Sorry, Qamar. This surah. Yeah, this surah.
This one ends with
Every ayah in this surah ends with a ra. Yeah, every single ayah. I only recognized this the other day. Every ayah in this surah, every single one, ends with a ra. Now, this is quite an interesting situation because here, if you heard how this was being recited, it's all very abrupt. Meaning, it's all very choppy, it's all very simultaneous, it's all very instant, it's all happening straight away. And what's the theme of it you'll find, as we'll come to the end of the surah, it's the simultaneity, or it's the spontaneous nature, or it is the sudden, abrupt nature of what? The Day of Judgment. وَإِنَّهَا وَاحِدَةٌ كَلَمْحٍ بِالْبَصَرِ. It's going to come in like 1 second. The thing's going to be 1 second, it's going to come. So look, the structure of it's almost onomatopoeic, meaning it's almost like the words and the rhyming, yeah, is meant to symbolize the content of the Quran. And you'll find this is very regular, like إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. It sounds like a shaking, you know. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ. It sounds like a whispering, you see. And here it's all choppy. Why? Because you want to get to the point quickly, you see. And you see, subhanAllah, in the previous surah, it was ending in an alif, mamduda. In this one, it's ra. It's changing, but it's similar at the same time. You'll see the similarity. It maintains some of the characteristic integrity of the last surah and the style of it, but it's actually different. And by the way, just on a side note, this idea of the fawasil, or the ends of the surahs ending in a certain letter, is something which is very common in the Quran. For example, Surah Furqan. Every ayah ends with the alif, except for one ayah, which is the word sabil in the 3rd or 4th ayah. And the same thing with Surah Al-Ahzab, chapter 33 of the Quran. Every ayah ends with the alif, except for the same word, by the way, sabil. Very interesting things. Yes? Surah Al-Ikhlas is small, that's why I'm giving you it's a bigger surah. But I'll give you another one, just because since we're on the theme of it. Surah Al-Mujadila, yeah, chapter 58. Every single ayah has the word Allah in it. Every single ayah, you can go and check this out and try and prove me wrong, huh? I'm saying every ayah has the word Allah. Why? Because there's a umda ayah in that surah which says استحوذ عليهم الشيطان فأنساهم ذكر الله. That the shaitan, he got them, or he overpowered them, so he made them forget the mentioning of Allah. So in order to counteract the shaitan, he puts Allah in each and every ayah. Now tell me now, imagine if a man here, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is narrating these surah instantaneously. Sometimes he's narrating them as an answer to certain questions. He's not doing it, he doesn't have time to write and edit and send it to the editor and see this and that. So how could it be? It's too detailed, it's too complicated, it's too precise. And this is what we say, فَلْيَأْتُوا بِحَدِيثٍ مِثْلِهِ إِنْ كَانُوا صَادِقِينَ. Let them bring something like it. Try and bring something like this, structurally, linguistically, rhythmically, syllabistically, historically. This is the challenge. When you start to realize that the challenge is no joke here, it's a serious challenge. And imagine, they weren't able to meet it. So we'll go to the next ayah. Yes?
Change phones, huh?
You want to change? That's what I'm saying, but they're saying it's all in Islamic tradition. You see? Yeah. So it says here, وَإِيَرَوْا آيَةً يُعْرِضُ وَيَقُولُ سِحْرٌ مُسْتَمِرٌ. And if they see a sign, they turn away and say it is continuous magic. In the previous surah, this was the same allegation. But here, once again, they're saying it's magic, which shows it's an admission of what? What did we say it was? Admission of? Who remembers? If you're saying something is magical, what does that admit? Yes?
Extraordinary.
Pardon?
Extraordinary.
Yeah, you're admitting to the supernatural, extraordinary, remarkable nature of the thing. وَكَذَّبُوا وَاتَّبَعُوا أَهْوَاءَهُم. And this theme continues. وَاتَّبَعُوا أَهْوَاءَهُم. You see, Allah has already done tanzih of the Prophet ﷺ. He's removed this idea that he could be يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. Here he's saying, no, they're the ones who يَنْتِقُونَ عَنِ الْهَوَى. In the previous surah he was saying, وَبَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى about the Prophet ﷺ. Here he's saying, وَكَذَّبُوا. They belied him, وَاتَّبَعُوا أَهْوَاءَهُم. Why did they do that? What's the reason psychologically? Because they want to follow their hedonistic desires. Because they know Islam is a religion. You need to do Umrah, you need to do Hajj, you need to do fasting, you need to do praying. This is a headache for them. I'd rather just drink and eat and eat like an animal. Yes, you're going to ask.
To go back a little bit, you mentioned about like the whole idea of like how the Quran is like said and like how each chapter like relates to the other. But then what someone brings the argument that okay, the Quran's like that because it was compiled like that.
Yeah, I'll come to that.
Okay.
Just remind me, yeah? Okay. Don't forget. So, وَكُلُّ أَمْرٍ مُسْتَقِرٍ. It says here, and every matter will be settled. Every single matter will be settled, yeah? وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُم مِّنَ الْأَنْبَاءِ مَا فِيهِ مُزْدَجَرٍ. And indeed, there has come to them news wherein there is enough warning to check them from evil. In other words, this is interesting because especially remember this ayah. It's ayah number 4, yeah? This is going to come about when we have a discussion about Qawm Lut in particular. And this is a very, very important discussion for today's world. Because as we'll find, you know, Allah says to Prophet Lut, he says to Prophet Lut that he'd done something, that he was successful in doing something. And this is connected to that, so just bear that in mind. حِكْمَةٌ بَالِغَةٌ. A perfect wisdom. فَمَا تُغْنِ النُّظُرُ. But the warners benefit them not. In other words, people come, this is perfect wisdom, makes sense to their fitrah, but these guys, they're not interested in it. فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ. So now Allah is telling the Prophet, speaking to him directly, says, withdraw from these people. يَوْمَ يَدْعُ الدَّاعِ إِلَى شَيْءٍ نُكُرٍ. And this ayn keep coming in two times in one ayah happened before as well. يَوْمَ يُدَعُونَ إِلَى نَارِ جَهَنَّمَ دَعَ. Even the fact that you have certain letters that are, this was in two surahs ago. Here you have فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ يَوْمَ يَدْعُ الدَّاعِ. It's the ayn again coming إِلَى شَيْءٍ نُكُرٍ, to something which is terrible. خُشَّ عَنْ أَبْصَارُهُم. It's the same kind of reflections as we had in Surah Al-Tur. So now it's the punishment being mentioned. That they will come forward with humbled eyes. خُشَّ عَنْ أَبْصَارُهُم يَخْرُجُونَ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ كَأَنَّهُم جَرَادٌ مُنْتَشِرٌ. By the way, in this surah, this term كَأَنَّهُم لِلتَّشْبِيه keeps coming up. كَأَنَّهُم is as if, simile. It's a simile. In English language, in Arabic language, it's the same thing. You have majaz and you have a simile and you have a metaphor. A simile is if you say someone is like someone else. A metaphor, if I say this man, he is a lion. Yani if I say I went into the mosque and I saw someone يخطب رأيت أسدا يخطب في المنبر وعلى المنبر. I saw a lion doing a khutbah on the minbar. No one's going to think that there's an actual lion, you know, came from the zoo. You're going to think it's it's a brave man, yani. It's a Muhammad Hijab or something like that. Or Hamza Zorsis, I don't know where he's gone. Oh, there he is. I was waiting for you the whole time. And actually, Hamza means lion, actually, so this is more befitting. فَكَأَنَّهُمْ جَرَادٌ مُنْتَشِرٌ. So this, as if they are locusts spread abroad. Yani, have you ever seen locusts? How they look, especially when they're together. They look like they are, yani, it looks kind of disturbing, actually.
Horrifying.
Yeah, it looks kind of disturbing, it does. They're scattered about, it's like moths, these insects, and sorry to say. And you'll find this in this surah. When Allah is speaking about human beings, He always uses insignificant tashbihat. He brings them down, and you're nothing. Basically, He's telling us you're nothing. You're Muslim and non-Muslim, all of you are nothing. You're basically nothing. You're like insects. You know how you see insects? I see you like that, actually worse than this. We already spoke about in the previous surah, I was talking about how Allah, He took the Prophet ﷺ to the high places, and yani, we're nothing compared to the khalq of Allah. We spoke about that. Now imagine here, yes, we're talking about Allah's trying to make us feel how insignificant we are by presenting the insects as a point of tashbih.
Insects don't even know where to go, don't know what to do. Have you ever played about with an insect? And when I was a kid, I used to see an ant going this way, I used to put my finger like that. And then they used to go there and I put my finger there, just playing around with the insect. Now, this is very cruel, I don't encourage this kind of behavior. But the point is that we consider them easy, crush this, that, throw, put my foot on them. It's a big foot as well, smash them. Whatever. I mean, so the way we consider insects, this is how really we are. We're insignificant, insect type, and it's on the Day of Judgment. And subhanAllah, the Day of Judgment, Hajj, we've just been to Umrah and stuff like that, and Hajj and Umrah, if you look at people in Hajj and Umrah even, with their 2 pieces of garments, the white cloths and stuff like that, as if they come out of the graves actually. Because the garments are meant to signify as if you come out of the grave, because you'll be wrapped in the same garments. And you're there, all of you, and you see it from the bird's eye view, even we have now on TV, how it looks like. You don't even know who's who. And by the way, the Americans, they use this kind of programming in foreign policy, because they look, these people here, look at all of them. It's so easy when you have a distance to dehumanize. Press a button, just press it. We don't care about every single one as a human being. But so in a sense, Allah is showing us you're nothing. Do you see? And on the Day of Judgment, you'll realize that. Hastening towards the caller. The disbelievers will say, this is a hard day. They will admit that time, it's a hard day. Yeah? Now we're going into the stories. كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح فكذبوا عبدنا وقالوا مجنون وازدجر. The people of Noah denied before them their messenger. They rejected our slave and said he's a madman, and he was insolently rebuked and threatened. Now the story of Noah is mentioned in Surah Hud, is mentioned in Surah Noah, is mentioned in many different parts of the Quran. He's one of the most mentioned messengers in the Quran, Nuh alayhi salam. But here is very interesting because it's kind of summarizing everything in even Ankabut actually. It's summarizing many different things in a short space of time. So firstly, it's telling us what his people said about him. And we know he was around for a very long time. Okay, with his people. فَدَعَ رَبَّهُ أَنِّي مَغْلُوبٌ فَانْتَصِرْ. He said, he invoked his Lord that I have been overcome, so help me. He made dua. And then here, listen, فَفَتَحْنَا أَبَوَابَ السَّمَاءِ بِمَاءٍ مُنْهَمِرٍ. So this sababiyya, it happens as a result. When a prophet makes a dua, it's a very different kind of level of dua. He made a dua against them. He said, I am overcome. I've had, like in a sense, I've had enough. So help me. Which shows you that we can all make such a dua. That when we feel overcome in our own lives, when we feel like things are too difficult, it's too much, it's unbearable, that we should make a similar dua. Like all of the prophets, if you look at their dua, their ad'iyah, they have a very similar way of doing it. Yaqub alayhi salam, إِنَّمَا أَشْكُ بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. Him, إِنِّي مَغْلُوبٌ فَانْتَصِرْ. And all the prophets have a way of doing it. فَفَتَحْنَا أَبْوَابَ السَّمَاءِ بِمَاءٍ مُنْهَمِرٍ. So he says here that we poured the gates of heaven with water pouring forth. And rain started to come down. Thunderous rain. You imagine the scene. It's a very serious, the water is coming down and it's flooding from the bottom as well. This is one of the scariest things for human beings, to see a tsunami type situation. We've seen tsunamis, we've seen how that looks like. Imagine a heavy tsunami and rain from the sky. This is serious. وَفَجَّرْنَا الْأَرْضَ عَيُونًا فَالْتَقَى الْمَاءُ عَلَى أَمْرٍ قَدْ قُدِرَ. And we caused the earth to gush forth with springs. So the waters of the heavens and earth met for a matter predestined. And this word Qudr comes up in the Quran, on this very surah, many times actually. So once again, there's repetition of words sometimes, to let you know that no matter who you think you are, and we were talking about this in the previous session, we were saying like, no matter who you think you are, whatever civilization you have been able to construct, you're really insignificant. And all it takes is one command and Allah will destroy you and flatten you in 1 second. But once again, as modern people, we should be very well aware of that, because we have nuclear weapons of mass destruction. We've actually seen whole cities and towns be destroyed with one button, with one human being pressing a button. Imagine in the Second World War, you had Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You had 2 cities in Japan. All it took was a person to do that, a human being, and then the whole place was flattened out. And if you think a human being can do that, press a button and then flatten out human beings like insects, then imagine if you don't believe Allah can do that. If a human being can do it, then what about Allah? He can flatten you out in less than this times. And in a way which is more, it's more grueling, it's more punishing, it's more heinous than that. وَحَمَلْنَاهُ عَلَى ذَاتِ أَلْوَاحٍ وَدُسُرٍ. And we carried him on a ship made of planks and nails. Why did Allah mention planks and nails? He's showing that these insignificant things which human beings use, Allah can help His Prophet using these things to create an invention like a ship which can withhold such a situation. And I actually believe, and this is something interesting actually, my children sometimes they ask me who invented this thing, or who invented like this building here, who made it. And we've got to be careful with the answer here because there's two answers. In one sense, we, the human beings, invented it, yes. But there is, Allah invented it because هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. He created you and what you do. Whatever good we do, we should ascribe that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He created us, did He not? So in a sense, indirectly Allah created us, our actions even. He invented the things we invented. Everything Allah is responsible for. But there's a difference between, because someone will say, well, does that mean He done all the bad things as well? Because I know what the thought process is going to be. There's a difference between Allah created your actions and He done your actions. And this distinction is a very important one that Ibn Taymiyyah mentions in Majmu'at al-Fatawa. He has a whole section on it, on the 8th volume. The 8th volume, he just speaks about qada or qadar and these kind of things, and he speaks about how this works. And basically in the 8th volume of Majmu'at al-Fatawa, he makes this distinction, important distinction, where he says that on the one hand, Allah creates everything including your actions. Yani everything you've done, Allah is the creator of it, yes. But He does not do everything including your actions. Yani let me be provocative a bit. Yani, sorry to say, let me be provocative. I'm going to be very provocative in this session because there's going to be talking about different groups and different issues. But let me start the provocation. If I say that there's a rapist, yani, or a thief, didn't you say that Allah is responsible and He created the thing and He invented it? How the atheist may say, well, you want to have it your way when it comes to the good things, but what about the bad things? Huh? How about that one? I say, listen, two things. Number one, it's impossible for Allah to do those things anyway. Why? Because, for example, let's take an easy example, theft. What is theft? Theft is to take something it doesn't own to you. But it's muhal aqlan for Allah to take something, or it's impossible for Allah to take something that doesn't own to Him because He owns everything. So theft is not even applicable to Allah. So that's from one janib. Another janib, or another idea is that this distinction between we are the doers of the action, Allah is the creator of it, He's got an indirect relationship with that action. He has an indirect relationship with that action, but He has a direct relationship in the creation of that action. This is an important distinction. So when something bad, we do something bad, that's because we done it. We're to blame for it. Did Allah create the bad things? Yes, He created everything, but what is bad anyway? And this is another discussion for another day, which we can't go into details, but some said bad doesn't exist. I mean, Ibn Taymiyyah had that view. Aquinas had that view, Thomas Aquinas, the Christian guy. Augustine had that view. He said actually, the bad thing is just the lack of the presence of the good thing. Al-Adam. Adam al-Shay al-Khayr. Adam al-Khayr, yani. The good is not there, that's what bad is. Anyway, that's another discussion for that. But the point I'm making to you is, Allah is responsible for all of the great inventions anybody has ever made at any time in human history. And it's ironic that we use those inventions to feel like we feel self-sufficient from Allah. And we say, look what we've created, look what we've done. We've done this big building here, we've got these clean streets here. And in a sense that makes us feel like we're mukhallad. We are everlasting or eternal creatures, immortal creatures. But actually even that Allah is responsible for. وَحَمَلْنَاهُ عَلَى ذَاتِ أَلْوَاحٍ وَدُسُرٍ تَجْرِي بِأَعْيُنِنَا جَزَاءً لِمَنْ كَانَ كُفْرٍ. Floating under our eyes, a reward for him who has been rejected. وَلَقَدْ تَرَكْنَاهَا آيَةً فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. And indeed we have left it as a sign. Then is there any that will remember or receive admonition? فَكَيْفَ كَانَ عَذَابِي وَنُذُرٍ. then how terrible was my torment and warning. Allah doesn't destroy a people until He sends them a messenger. وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. Allah mentions that in Surah Al-Isra, that He does not destroy a people until He sends them a messenger. And this is very important because someone will say, well, there's so many people in the world today, they're Christian, they are, they're this, they're that, but they have never heard the message of Islam. Or in fact, they may have heard the message of Islam, but it might have been distorted. Or all they know about Islam is that Islam is a religion of terrorism. Is it fair that they will be put into the hellfire? The Islamic answer is no, it's not actually fair. And that's why Allah says, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. We're not going to destroy them until we send them a prophet. And so, this is from the rahmah of Allah. Because if you really think about it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-A'raf, He says, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِهِمْ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّةً وَأَشْهَدُهُمْ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ قَالُوا بَلَى شَهِدْنَا. That when Allah, He took from a pledge, a covenant from the people of the children of Adam, He took a covenant from them, am I not your Lord? And they say, yes, we are. So in other words, we have this fitrah, or this thing maghruz fina. We have this thing, naz'a imaniyya, this idea of iman already in us, embedded software. For example, a child, a baby, a toddler, whatever happens, he knows kind of who his mum is. He knows he has a mum. He knows the idea of motherhood. All these things are clear in the mind of the child. And what we're saying is that the same thing, the fitrah is the same thing as this. You see? It could have been sufficient for Allah to destroy us because we're not even searching for the fitrah. We're not searching for Allah. But Allah, He made a condition, which is that you have to hear it first, so that you come back to the truth. So when you hear these punishments and stuff, you have to put it in that context. That we put it in the context of, they were sent a messenger and they have a fitrah. Two things. They are well deserving of that punishment. Why else would they reject the situation? Why would they reject it? The evidences are there. All the prophets came with some kind of evidence. And then Allah says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. We have certainly made the Qur'an easy to understand and remember. Then is there anyone who will remember it? And this is itself kind of a miraculous verse. The Qur'an is the most memorized book in the world of its size. There's no other book. I've met many Christians, many Jews in my life, spoken with them, debated with them, discussed with them. I have not met a single Christian or a single Jew who has memorized their holy book. Ever. To be honest with you, I've never even met somebody who had attempted it. Have you?
No, why do you think that is? Why?
It's hard to even memorize that stuff. What are you going to memorize anyway? Look at this. Listen to this ayah. Look at this surah. We just told you everything is so rhythmic. That I was reading a book by a guy called Tony Buzan a long time ago, How to Remember or Memory, The Secret of Memory or something. He said one of the most important aspects of memory, and most people will tell you this, is rhythm, is rhyme, is syllables, is all these things. The Bible is not fit for purpose as a book to be memorized. Neither is any other book a religious book. It's not. Take a look at it. Read it. If the Genesis is a story, it's a fable. Read it. And so it's for example, Genesis chapter 6 or chapter 9. The whole thing is asanid. The whole thing is, he was the son of him. He was the son of him. He was the son of him. What kind of information is that? It's like you're going to the bureau or something and getting someone's ancestry test or something. It's not something to be memorized. Yes.
What's wrong with that? That it's not a book to be memorized.
We're not saying there's anything wrong with it. We're just saying that the question is, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Allah is saying that He has made the Qur'an easy to remember. So this is something special about the Qur'an. And you'd expect for a book which is meant to contain the words of God to be implemented, to be spread, to be easy to memorize. Because if not, then anyone could change it, it's part of the preservation mechanism.
Don't you think it's hard?
Sorry, go first.
Don't you think it's hard to memorize it because it was changed? Like they put some things that are not from God?
Exactly. Guys, let's try and keep it down, please, yeah? Let's try and keep it down. Yeah, so as I was saying, it's, yeah, I mean, it could be, sorry, could be, yeah, because it was changed. Could be because it was changed. I mean, because it was not only just changed, like, I'm not going to go into deep detail about this, but like, for example, the Old Testament, one of the main sources of it is a Greek source, the Septuagint. It's a Hebrew book. They have to translate it from Greek to Hebrew first. Yani, this is the problem of not having a book that's easy to memorize. If you don't have a book that's easy to memorize, then you rely on even another language source. It's another language. Imagine if I say to you, one of the earliest Qur'ans is in this place or that place, and it's in French or another language. Well, French is relatively new. Let's say a language that existed at the time. Yeah, Hebrew, and I had to translate it from Hebrew to Arabic first. Then you rely on the translator. You rely on this. You rely on that. You cannot compare the Quran with any other book. Full stop. But the fact that Allah keeps repeating this itself is kind of as if He's trying to encourage us to memorize the Quran. Because فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ doesn't just mean understand it. It means remember it. Yes?
Yeah, and like you said earlier about Rasulullah about how he was like a warrior, he was unlettered. Similar to the Quran, people can always say, oh, so what, for each individual aspect, but they're missing the whole picture.
Exactly.
Like it's compounded, like probabilities. Okay, I flip heads once. I can't flip heads 506,000 billion times and get heads always. It's like there's something else going on.
If I made a YouTube video, for 30, 40 hour long video,
Yeah.
Yani, I've never done that. I don't plan to do that. But let's say I do a 40, it takes about 30 hours to recite the Quran. The whole thing, 30 to 40 hours. Let's just say 35 hours. I'll make a 35-hour video. I claim to be whatever I claim to be, yeah? And then that whole video is memorized 1,000 years later by a quarter of the, not a quarter of the world, but a big chunk, millions of people. What kind of success would you call that video? Do you see?
Yeah.
It's the most successful video of all times. If I made a 25, 30 hour, 35 hour music track, there's not one musician, one poet, one astounding writer of literacy, Shakespeare, anybody who's ever achieved anything like that. How could that not be worthy of note? My question to the fair-minded kafir is, you cannot tell me this is not worthy of note. Because wallahi, if you had been the author of it, you would know that it's worthy of note. There's no other book in the world that has actually achieved that. It has an accolade that no other book has, and that's an empirical thing. It is a sociologically empirical thing. It's a historical thing. It's a cross-cultural thing. You can't lie. You can't distort the facts here. The Quran has an accolade which no other book has, which is, it's the most memorized book in human history. They can say, وَكَانَ مَاذَا? So what? I say, so what? It's not what they say when they're watching Netflix shows. Because they look at the ones that everyone recommends, everyone wants. Or the movies that everyone watches. Or everyone watches these things. There's something called the Pareto principle. Which is that, I don't know what exact percentages are, but let's just say for the sake of argument, 2% of people make 98% of the content. Yani if I ask you the question, who makes the majority of music in the world? Really, it's 100 people. Yani 100 people, 150 people today, yani living human beings. How many people are doing music? So many people. How many A-list celebrities at the highest level are there? 50, 100 maximum. Highest level, 100. I'm not going to say anything more than that. Now, what I'm saying is that not significant? Of course it's significant. Society has hierarchized that as something which is significant. Otherwise, when you walk in the street, and when I walk in the street, it's the same thing. I'm joking. No, but that's the idea. You see, society rates things based on views, based on effects, based on... I'm telling you, this book is the most memorized book in the history of the world. And there's no second place of its size. There's no second place. So this is it's an evidence for the veracity of Islam. And if someone says it's not, wallahi, they are deluding themselves. They are deluding themselves.
Brother,
Yes.
how important, I kind of know the question, but I just want to, the answer, but I want to hear it from you. How important is memorizing Quran to the person in da'wah? I know it's very important, like significant, you need to do that, but how much do I have to dedicate myself?
That's going to descope this, and I don't want to hold on to that question like his one. Yeah, just hold on to it, and if we have time at the end, I'll have to deal with it. But one more thing, linguistically and stylistically, this is a question that is continually asked in this surah. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. In the next surah, Surah Rahman, we're not going to be going through it together, but there's a question that's continually asked. Who remembers what the question? Which means what?
Is there any more reason for you to not?
Deny of you jinn and human beings, like two people as being this thing. That which of the favors of God will you deny? Yeah? Which of the favors of God will you deny? The fact that in this surah you have a question continually asked, that's a stylistic feature of the surah. The next surah, you have one question continually asked as well. So there's a stylistic feature of this surah which, in a sense, continues to the next. كذبت عاد فكيف كان عذابي ونذر. Ad belied their prophet, which is Hud, by the way. And how terrible was my torment and my warnings. إنا أرسلنا عليهم ريحا صرصرا في يوم نحس مستمر. This is the second time mustamir has been used in the Quran, in this surah. Verily we sent down a furious wind of a harsh voice on a day of evil omen and continuous calamity. It's a bit of a mouthful, this translation. But we have something, look, all the elements are being described. First we have the water. If you think about it, right? You have the water, it destroys. Allah has all these junud of Allah. وَلَا يَعْلَمُ جُنُودَ رَبِّكَ إِلَّا هُوَ. Allah only knows His junud. The water, we use it for drinking, for living. Without it, we wouldn't be alive. We have created from water every living thing. But He used it to destroy the people. Likewise, now we're going to the furious wind, the loud noise that destroyed another people. So you're moving from element to element, meaning you don't even know where it could come from, which goes back to the theme of simultaneity, instant, abrupt endings, and all these kind of things. You don't know how this fight is going to end. You don't even know. You know? It could be you swallowed up, it could be you're burnt, it could be this, it could be... Allah can destroy you in whatever way He wants. You think this is something which is only applicable to, this is a asatirul awwaleen. Look at, for example, how people die. Go to your country and how people die on a yearly basis. I was on cancer research website some time ago, and I read something on there which I found quite disturbing. It said 1 in every 2 people will die from cancer. And I thought this must be a superinflation or some kind of caricature. But then they said, no, actually what it is that most of these people are going to be over the age of 65 and they're going to die from cancer. How many cancers are there? There's leukemia, there's skin cancer, there's all kinds of cancers. So we think we're safe. We have amana, we believe in makrillah. We think that makrillah is not there. Allah can destroy one. Look at COVID, what happened? Governments shut themselves down and we all stay in our homes and stuff like that, and the animals were in the street walking about. Well, that's what happened. And the things were being unpolluted and these kind of things. One virus from some power plant and whatever it was in China, Wuhan province. Or they say it was a bat, or a bat can destroy all of us, one bat. One bat can destroy all of us. First it was one man that pressed the button, now it's one bat. What's next? I'm saying, the point is, you can be destroyed from anything. Cancer can hit you. And we have anxiety over things in life. Because Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ خُلِقَ هَلُوعًا. We have created the human being in a state of anxiety. We're essentially anxiety-ridden creatures. We have anxiety all the time. Oh, what's going to happen? Or what is going to happen? Or is this good here? I'm going to lose money, and I can't get here, and the money's not going to be enough, and this and that, and he's not going to get through school. Actually, I'm not going to get the grades, and I'm not going to get married, and what if I don't get married? And what if my kid turns out disabled? And what if you just die? What if something happened to you? A mawt al-faj'ah. What if something, you drink, you walk the street, someone hits you, someone stab you, someone shoot you. You live in America, there's shootings happening. Walk in the street. Anything can happen. So there's a level of tawakkul you have to have. And there's also a level of fear of the makr of Allah. You have to ponder over the consequences that Allah can put in place for you. These people, they were walking as freely as we were. Qawm Nuh. Do you think that they didn't drink and eat and laugh and joke? If you saw some people from Qawm Nuh, and I did a documentary on him, maybe you'll feel sorry for the guy. This was one of the guys from Qawm Nuh, and he's walking, and he's got his kids, and they're laughing and smiling, and then one day destroyed. Why? Because he had the arrogance in him. He had al-amn min makrillah. He didn't care. Min kaydillah. He thought everything was okay. Maybe we think everything is okay. And look at this. تَنْزِعُ النَّاسَ كَأَنَّهُمْ أَعْجَازُ نَخْلٍ مُقَعِرٍ. Plucking out men as if they were uprooted stems of date palms. Look, كَأَنَّهُمْ once again. So as I said, this surah is going to have continual mention of كَأَنَّهُمْ, 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 كَأَنَّهُ, and so on. Tashbih, simile. This surah is filled with repetition of the same thing and simile. These are the two things which characterize the style and the linguistic lexical field of this particular surah. But look at the tashbih itself, because it's very, I was thinking about this actually. I was thinking, you got trees. Now a tree is very firmly rooted into the ground. What would pull out a tree from its root? Some cataclysmic event, some enormous event, some serious event. But these trees are being used to describe the human being. Because the human being thinks he's stable, he's okay. I've got enough money in the bank. يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَالَهُ أَخْلَدَهُ. He thinks his money has made him okay now. You see, when there's more and more money in a society, that society becomes less and less God-fearing. That's a trend. They don't need it. And on the flip side, and this is a correlation. If you see the most religious countries in the world, they're war, places where there's war, for example. Look at Somalia. Look, when they answer about the Sharia questions, they usually get very high. Afghanistan, when they answer about the Sharia questions, very high. Would you implement God's law? Yes, this and that. Pakistan, yes. This and that, yes. Kosovo, actually, they've changed. They've got their own situation. I'm not going to mention Kosovo because they have a war, in fact. But then when you ask the people in England, for example, they don't even have natural disasters. We don't even have natural disasters in England. From time to time, we're not in a tectonic area. It's pretty safe countries to go. I'm not trying to, take you away from the gang crimes and the shootings and all this kind of thing. I'm going to bring you over. We've got a good, we've got knife crime as well, actually. But you think you're stable then. You think you're okay, you're alright. I'm alright, I'm doing okay. Yeah. Whatever, you're walking around strutting and stuff. And then one day you get destroyed, you get humiliated. We've seen it in popular culture, we've seen it with celebrity culture, we've seen it with dictators, we've seen it with everything. Yeah. Because these people why is Allah comparing them with these trees? Because He is showing you that the tree is stable, or at least it seemed. There was the illusion of stability. All of us only have an illusion of stability. And then He took them out of the ground like they were أعجاز نخل مقعر. And once again, this ayn is coming out. It's almost roaring out. منقعر. فكيف كان عذابي ونذر. Then how terrible was my torment and my warnings. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهُوَ مُدَّكِرٌ. Once again, we have made the Qur'an easy to remember. For who's going to remember it? Who's going to remember it? And questions in the previous surah were commonplace as well. Actually, this was in Tur. أم خلقوا من غير شيء أم هم الخالقون أم خلقوا السماوات والأرض بل يقولون yeah, it continues. Or is it this, or is it that? It's question. Which shows us what? What do we say about questions?
It's a
challenge.
It's a challenge. But what is it? Why? Yani, you have an assertion, I make a point, and you have a question.
Is it their admission exploring how
Let the sister say something. Go on. To think, yeah. So it makes you think. Yeah. Yes.
You said that sometimes it's more powerful.
It's more powerful sometimes, because you got to always think about follow the Qur'anic method. Yeah. If you ask someone a question, sometimes it's more powerful than making a point. Wallahi, a question can really shake somebody. One question, just one question. They'll say, yeah, I'll give you one question now that you can use in da'wah. And I've read some atheists saying about this question that it was it haunted them, this question. I'm going to give you some. And you'd be thinking, why would this question haunt an atheist? But think about it and you'll see why. But obviously from a Muslim perspective, we may not appreciate this. The question is, why is there something rather than nothing? Why is there something rather than nothing? If the atheist, why is there something? Yeah, why is there something, not nothing, and this and that? And it can make him go mad. Then he's going to try and what? Find an explanation. And the explanation is going to have to be what? An ultimate cause, and that's it. We've got God as an option on the table. Yeah. So this is a question. If we really believe in Allah, you really believe in these stories, you really believe that like this happened, Allah actually did this to people in history, then we've made this Quran easy to remember, made it easy for you. So why don't you remember it? كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ بِالنُّذُرِ. Now we have Thamud. Also belied the warnings. Ad and Thamud, as we said, they always couple together. Ad, Thamud, Qawm Lut. Nuh as well. These four sometimes, a lot of times, are coupled together. Why? Because they were so similar in their behavior, in their culture, in their behavior. فَقَالُوا أَبَشَرًا مِنَّا وَاحِدًا نَتَّبِعَهُ إِنَّا إِذًا لَفِي ضَلَالٍ وَسُعُرٍ. They said, a man alone from among us that we would follow, truly then would be error and in distress or madness. Remember, they were accusing him of madness, and now they're saying, we would be mad if we follow you. So they've changed the goalposts a little bit. But what's the problem with it? I mean, I was thinking about this ayah myself. أَبَشَرًا مِنَّا وَاحِدًا. If it's one person, why should we follow one man? Say again? No, I mean, this is what the Quran, these guys, yeah, the people of Thamud, yeah, they're saying, why should we follow one man? بَشَرًا وَاحِدًا. نَتَّبِعَهُ إِنَّا إِذًا لَفِي ضَلَالٍ وَسُعُرٍ. If we follow this guy, we'll be in dalal and su'ar. The idea is, they don't want to just follow one person. Actually, it's a herd mentality. We're seeing our fathers doing this, we're seeing these people doing this. Well, why should we follow this one guy? Yani, what do you mean, why should we follow this one guy? It's not a rational argument. If you think about their arguments, it's dahida. It's a weak argument actually. And then they go further actually. They say, أُلْقِيَ الذِّكْرُ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ بَيْنِنَا بَلْ هُوَ كَذَّابٌ أَشِرٌ سَيَعْلَمُونَ غَدًا مَنِ الْكَذَّابُ الْأَشِرُ. Is it that the reminder is sent to him? They talk about Saleh here, by the way. Yes. Alone from among us. And by the way, he was one of the Arab prophets. And they say, and he is an insolent liar. They're speaking about a prophet as he is a liar. سَيَعْلَمُونَ غَدًا. Allah now is answering on his behalf. It's as if Allah saying, Yani, they'll know tomorrow. Yani, later on they'll know. It's not exactly tomorrow, but later on they'll know who the liar is. Which shows you something. They knew he was a true prophet. Otherwise it wouldn't be a lie. It would be takdeeb, but it wouldn't be a lie. Because why would it be a lie if they actually believed that he wasn't a prophet? So Allah didn't destroy them just on the basis that they belied the Prophet. No, they knew he was speaking the truth. And then they rejected him. What kind of arrogance is this? And then Allah continues, because even after this, Allah gives them additional evidence. إِنَّا مُرْسِلُ النَّاقَةِ فِتْنَةً لَهُمْ فَارْتَقِبُهُمْ وَاصْطَبِرْ. Verily, we are sending the she-camel as a test for them, so watch them and be patient. And it's not فَارْتَقِبُهُمْ وَاصْبِرْ, which is a lesser form of the word sabr. wastabir is be very seriously patient over it. Like in Surah Taha, when Allah tells us to وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاسْتَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. Same word is used here. That tell your family to pray and be watchful over them. It's not enough to tell your son or to tell your daughter, go and pray. You have to keep telling them to pray. So I've had enough, I've told them already. No. Because if your job was just to tell them one time, he wouldn't have used such a strong term in the Quran. Your job as a parent is to continually tell your kids to pray, and your family. So this is the importance of the word istabir. One letter changes the dynamic completely. This is why the importance of the Arabic language. We have sent this naqa, this she camel, as a fitnatan lahum, as some kind of a trial for them. Fartaqibhum. So watch them. Wastabir. All they're saying is, do not kill. He says, don't kill this camel. When you think about it, that's an easy thing to do. All I have to do is nothing. I don't have to do anything. But imagine the arrogance. Imagine that they want to prove a point. They're coming out. Listen to وَنَبِّئْهُمْ أَنَّ الْمَاءَ قِسْمًا بَيْنَهُمْ كُلُّ شِرْبٍ مُحْتَضَرٍ. And even now it's telling them, look, you want to drink? Every one of you has your turn. Meaning he's still going to give them provision. Allah is Latif. He's Rahim. He's Ghafoor. He gives them chance after chance. Look, you want to drink? You can drink. فَنَادَوْا صَاحِبَهُم. This is the word that they use with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Remember in the previous surah, مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى. That your sahib, your friend, did not go astray. The same language is being used now with the previous prophet. They liked him. They liked the guy. Can you imagine this? You have a friend of yours. If you have a friend of yours, good friend. I want you to imagine one of your best friends. Yes? And now he's telling you some very important thing to him. And there's a community of people, maybe it's 500, 1,000, 2,000. We don't know what the population of that place is. He's telling them, please, this is something he's a friend of theirs. And all he's saying is, don't kill this camel here. He's not even telling them to give them money, nothing. Just don't kill this one here. And he's saying, فَتَعَاطَى فَعَقَرْ. They gave a sword to this one guy, he killed the camel. What's wrong with these people? Wallahi, what's wrong with these people? You feel that they're sick in the mind. When you think about them, what the hell is wrong with you? Why would you do that? And imagine they know he's a true prophet. What kind of arrogance? Because remember, they're taqreeb. سَيَعْلَمُونَ غَدًا مَنْ هُوَ كَذَّابُ الْأَشْرَ. They believe he's a true prophet. And he's telling them, don't kill this one, and they kill him. They all give him like a ceremony. They're giving him a big sword to kill the camel. No one's saying, stop, don't kill it. You don't know what could happen to us. Wallahi, these people are sick in the mind. But we think that this is an ancient story which doesn't have any application today. Wallahi, it has so much application today. People are sick in the mind, man. They have now deluded themselves into thinking that they're in control of the world. They're offended when we say that there's a control above your own desires. They're offended by it. They are offended. فَكَيْفَ كَانَ عَذَابِي وَنُذُرِ. So how terrible was my punishment and my warnings? And that tells us what it is. He says, إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً فَكَانُوا كَهَشِيمِ الْمُحْتَضَرِ. We sent them a single sayha, which is like a torment or an awful cry, and they became like dry stubble of fold builder. Now this is a very horrible translation. Let me just change it up. Basically, in the farmer, when he gives food to the animal and it crunches up, it's like, now you're not even like an insect or an animal. You're like the food that the animal eats. And you're crunched up, you're crumbs of the earth. You're nothing. So imagine that you thought you're all this, now you're just like some crumbs on the ground. You're sick-minded people coming out stabbing the she-camel. You're coming out hurting your friends' feelings. You know who's a true prophet, you're doing all this stuff. Now you're nothing. You're a footnote in history. You're in the trash heap of history. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. We have made the Quran easy to remember, so who's going to remember it? Now, we're going to Qawm Lut, and I'm going to spend a little bit more time with him. I've done this on purpose because I feel like this is very applicable to us. Not like the other ones weren't. I actually think that all of the Rusul, when they came to their people and all of the problems that they had, today's age is almost like a combination of all of those problems. Yeah, no. So, like for example, the wakilu bil qistas al mustaqim, and the you know, business fraud, basically call it. Some prophets came with that. Some prophets came with luat, or what's referred to mithliya or shududiyya, whatever. Huh? LGBT community, and not just that, it's what they come with, the ideas that they come with, which we're going to speak about in detail, some detail here. Everyone's going to wake up for this one. Okay. But what I'm saying is that, yani, all of the prophets are ibrah for us. So when we're looking at these, we should be looking at how we should be giving da'wah to homosexuals. Because this is, and obviously this is one surah of many that speak about Qawm Lut. Let's get involved. The first thing that Allah says is, إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ حَاصِبًا إِلَّا آلَ لُوطٍ نَجَّيْنَاهُمْ بِسَحَرٍ. That we sent them a violent tornado with showers of stones which destroyed them, except for Lut's household, that we delivered them by early dawn. We know from the other parts of the Quran that in fact the wife of Lut was destroyed as well. Some Mufassirs even say that she was joining the LGBTQ. And there is some indication that she was herself lesbian. How is this the case? Yes, maybe. Some indication there. She joined them and she was destroyed, actually. And imagine, subhanAllah, imagine this is a wife of a prophet. So sometimes some of us, men and women, this is not a gender specific issue, because in the Quran you have a man example of that, which is, there's two main examples, Nuh and Lut. كانتا تحت عبدين من عبادنا فخانتاهما. You know, that they were underneath two righteous slaves, and then they betrayed them. And then you have Imra'at Fir'aun, who had a very horrible husband. So sometimes you can have a great person. She was seen as one of the best people of all time, actually. The Prophet said in Hadith, the wife of Fir'aun. But she had one of the worst people of all time as her husband. Likewise, this is one of the best people of all time. We had one of the worst women of all time as his wife. So you never know, it's always nasib. You cannot control all the variables. Who you married, this, that. I mean, imagine someone coming to Lut and say, look, how comes you married this woman here? And Lut's mother or his auntie or something, how could you not know this beforehand? And look at her behavior. The point is you can't control the hearts of mankind. People will go astray. Your kids could go astray. Your family could go astray. Your spouse could go astray. And if it happened to the prophets, then in Bab Awla it could happen to all of us. We're all susceptible to this point. This is the first thing. So Allah says, Ni'matan min indina, and obviously this is referring to the fact that the najat that is being referred to, not the destruction, that it's a grace from upon us, that Allah saved these people, that the people of Lut, He saved them, and that's ni'mah. كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي مَنْ شَكَرَ. And we talked about gratitude in the previous surah. And this shows you how important gratitude is. We will reward the people that not just praise Allah, but thank Allah with a removal of affliction. This is very important. Which shows you that from the benefits of doing shukr of Allah is the removal of affliction. And this is what Al-Hasan al-Basri said. قَيِّدُوا نِعْمَ اللَّهِ بِشُكْرِ اللَّهِ. He said, put together all of the blessings of Allah with the gratitude of Allah. This is what he said. And the Quran also says, وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you're thankful, I'll give you more. So two main things that the Quran is telling us that you'll get as a benefit in this dunya for doing gratitude. Number one is that you'll be saved from affliction, and number two, that Allah will give you more blessings. So this shows you the power of shukr. Shukr. And that extends, as we know, to the khalq, because the Prophet ﷺ told us, مَنْ لَمْ يَشْكُرُ النَّاسِ لَمْ يَشْكُرُ اللَّهِ. Whoever doesn't thank the people has not thanked Allah. So this is the importance of shukr. وَلَقَدْ أَنذَرَهُمْ بَطْشَتَنَا فَتَمَارَ بِالنُّذُرِ. And Lot did warn them of our punishment, but they disputed about the warning. Now this is very important. I was thinking about this for some time. This shows you the minimum requirement of da'wah with homosexuals. That you have to at least warn them of the consequences. Because what did Allah praise Lut for here? He said, وَلَقَدْ what did I just say here? أَنذَرَهُمْ بَطَشَتَنَا. He did warn them. فَتَمَارَوا بِالنُّظُرِ. So they didn't pay attention to it. The point is this, is that Allah is praising Lut. He is praising him for telling them the consequences of their homosexuality. Now, a lot of people in da'wah, they don't even want to mention the consequences of homosexuality. They'll say it's maslaha issue. Like Yaqeen Institute in America. Yeah, I don't mind mentioning names. We have to tell the truth. Like they'll make these, they don't speak to homosexuals in a way that Lot spoke to his people. This is the biggest criticism, and it could be the Achilles heel of that organization. Because Lot, he told the people, أَلَيْسَ مِنْكُمْ رَجُلٌ رَشِيدٌ رَجُلٌ رَشِيدٌ. He said that, you know, إِنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالَ شَهْوَةً مِنْ دُونِ النِّسَاءِ. Are you coming to the men with desire? This stuff, you don't find it in some aspects of American da'wah at all. It's absent. In fact, if someone did that, I promise you part of the community would reject him. Would say this guy is being too rough with the homosexuals. No, he's not being rough. He's doing exactly what the Prophet did. Now, it doesn't mean that's the only thing you do. Because that's not the only thing Lut did, alayhi salam. And I'll give you an acronym here that can help doing da'wah to the homosexuals. I've made this acronym myself. C stands for consequences. The first thing with a homosexual that you should do is tell them the consequences. Now the consequences are divided into two. Dunyawi and ukhrawi. This life and the hereafter. This life, there's undoubtedly studies that show homosexual parenting, they produce kids that have pathologies, psychological pathologies. It creates, for example, homosexual people by almost all studies that have ever been done, including the NHS, the National Health Service, in England, the main body. They say that they have 10 to 15 times more likely to contract a sexually transmitted disease than a normal person. You can easily make a consequentialist communitarian argument that what you're doing is affecting the whole community. We shouldn't allow this thing. It's the easiest argument that you can make. It affects your children, it affects your bodies, it affects everything bad. It's everything bad. But that's not the only thing we should do. And obviously we believe in the hereafter. They might not believe in the hereafter, but we tell them as well. At what point in the conversation you decide to tell them, that's going to be a matter of personal choice. But consequences, C for consequences. A is for alternatives. Because he said, هَؤُلَاءِ بَنَاتِي. Now the thing is, people, they don't realize, Lord, he said, these are my daughters, you can marry them. These are more pure for you. Someone would ask, how could the Prophet offer homosexuals? I wouldn't offer homosexuals to marry. How could the Prophet do it? So some have done ta'wil of the Quran, says no, it means banati means the girls of the town. It wasn't really like how you say majazi way and so on. I think this is a weak I don't believe in that, just to be honest. Because then why would you give these homosexuals, if it was such a bad thing, why would you do it for other women? Muslim women, for example. It's still a problem here. It's a mushkil. When he said هَؤُلَاءِ بَنَاتِي, these are my daughters, he's not saying you can marry them straight away. Because we know that if you want to marry a chaste person, you have to go through a whole rehabilitation process, a repentance, a spiritual repentance. And the converts, for example, in our communities and stuff, some of them have done worse than homosexuality, in our understanding. Some of them have killed people, but so long as they've gone through a rehabilitation, they've repented, you can see that they now have the same views. They've changed. So why not give them the alternative? Because let me tell you something. The truth of the matter is that sexuality is like a wave. Yes? And a wave is huge. You can't stand in front of it like that and say stop, because you'll just get washed away with it. You can't stop someone's sexuality, and you can't, if someone has a sexual desire, you cannot say stop and khalas, the person's going to say I have made a rational decision, I'm going to stop. You can only really redirect, and this is the idea. You can redirect a sexuality, but you can't stop it. And sometimes when you try and stop it, it gets worse. Like for example, let me give you this might be a caricature, but some fringe members, and I'm being of the clergy in the Christian world, they have been found to engage in pedophilic practices with children. It's not a representation of the clergy, it's not a representation of the priests, it's not a representation. However, why this act in particular? Is it because the child won't tell? Is it because this? Is it because that? We don't really know exactly why this pathway in particular, but what we can say is, you told them to stop doing something, now they're doing something worse. Sometimes when you try and stop something, you produce a worse result. Now, there's many different schools of thought in psychology. There's the psychoanalytic school, there's the behavioralist school, there's this school, there's that school, whatever. And all of them have some share of the truth. But psychoanalysts would say, if you try and tell someone to stop thinking of something sexual, you're actually making them think more about it. And they would say that. And Mamnu' Marghub. Even Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyya mentioned that in his book. So if you just tell them, stop, there's consequences, you're going to go to hell, the likelihood of success is very low actually. You should do that, it should be a part of the package, but it's not the only thing. You can't just do that. So you have to give them an alternative. And the question is it possible? Now, once you free up in the mind of any homosexual, whether, by the way, there are many Muslims who suffer from these kinds of feelings. Once they free up the possibility that, yes, I can change my sexuality. Because the question is, can you change your sexual preference? The answer is yes. There's a good deal of evidence that you can change your sexual preference. And do you know who will tell you that? The main people, ironically, who will tell you that you can change your sexual preference are the queer theorists and the LGBTQ lobby. Why? They say because sexuality, just like gender, is fluid. Wait, no, it's very interesting you're saying this to me, huh? You say that sexuality is fluid. You say yes. I say, are you gay? You say yes. So can you change? No. I said, I thought you said it was fluid. So it's not fluid. It's either fluid or it's not fluid. You can't have both ways. The one question you ask the homosexual who is, whether it's Muslim or not, is sexuality fluid? Just like you're saying gender's fluid, yes? I'm gender fluid. I'm saying, is sexuality fluid? You say yes. I say, if sexuality is fluid, it means there's a possibility you can change your sexual preference. Now the question is, does one want to change their sexual preference? That's all it boils down to. Does one want to change their sexual preference? What I'm saying to you is, if there's a will, there's a way. If there's a will, then there is a way. Now, before there was something called conversion therapy, which actually is outlawed in I think the UK and many other countries in Europe. I don't know about the United States of America, but people used to come into the psychologist's office and they used to actually want to change their sexuality to becoming heterosexual. Now they're saying it's an offense to homosexuals, which I think is nonsense, because actually this is an affront to liberal individualism. Like, if you believe in liberal individualism, yes, if you believe in liberal individualism, you should allow the person to change whatever he wants to change. If you wanted to become a homosexual, you're going to say stop to him as well? We would say, to what extent are you going to try and encroach the rights of the people like this? Anyway, the alternative thing is a very important component, and it works with almost any sexuality. What I'll say is, on this point as well, the question is, I'll go into a little bit more detail. Yeah, why not? The question is this, is that, how does sexuality work? It's a very complicated question. I can't answer it in this time, no chance. But it's important for us Muslims to have a proper discussion about this, because a lot of it, like a lot of the stakes are high now in the society that we live in. The stakes are too high for us not to understand this stuff. Sexuality works in a very complex way, where physiology and psychology and biology are all connected. And the truth of the matter is that there is something called the sympathetic nervous system. You've got the autonomic nervous system, right? And it's just divided into two, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system, it deals with fight or flight responses and excitement stuff. Like, for example, sexuality is in that domain. Because we're living in the age of boredom, we are living in the age of boredom. In fact, one philosopher very famously said that we oscillate between two different ages. ages of war and ages of boredom. Because if you're not going to war, you get bored. There's no fight, there's no survival, you get bored. You're staying at home, what am I doing? Let me see, flick, watch, flick. That's your life. You're living in the age of boredom. So what does someone who's bored want to do? Tell me now.
Like,
they want to, not necessarily just fight, that is one of the things, but excite. They want excitement. Now imagine now, someone has built up a tolerance, you can build up a tolerance to anything. This is the biological element. At one point I was doing some studies and stuff, I started taking Ritalin, if you know what Ritalin. I haven't got ADHD, it's an ADHD thing. It gives you a bit, makes you think, it makes you like concentrate, it doesn't make you high, just in case anyone is thinking. It makes you concentrate, it gives you more power. But it gave me this, how do you say, it made me very bored when I stopped taking it. I was thinking, why am I yawning all the time? What's wrong with me, man? And I realized it's because it increases your dopamine levels to such a level which is, it surges, and then the crash is big. It's the same thing when you use your phone and when you use this in pornographies and there's films and all that. It increases the dopamine to such a high level that to keep it high, you need some new excitement. And some psychologists have said that in order to get that sexual excitement, they refer to it as transgression. Something which you know, or at least you think, morally, according to you, is wrong. Which, by the way, I did a study, not through using anything illicit. I was looking at where homosexuality, pornography is consumed the most. And you'll be very surprised, a lot of it is in African countries, where, like Kenya and so on, lots of countries like this. Yes, you think, why is that? They're opposite to homosexuality, they're against it. But because it's a transgression, everyone knows it's wrong in that country. Sometimes when you know something is wrong, you want to do it more. The point is that it's a transgression. Now, how do you solve this issue, therefore? Okay, just. Okay. So the point I was making is I was saying that how do you moderate this point? Like, how do you moderate if you know that what excites you is this transgressions and these kinds of things? How do you moderate the point? Actually, there's two ways of moderating it. Technically and logically, there's only two ways of doing it. Number one is to increase in the behavior. And number two is to decrease in the behavior. There's only two things you can do. Increase or decrease. There's no third option. Now, what do I mean by that? Like, say, for example, if you're addicted to drugs, you're not getting the high that you wanted to, yes, with this level of drugs, so you go higher. That's one way you can get the high again, feel good again. Another way is to stop taking the drugs altogether, and then you'll feel good. When you take coffee or something, you drink coffee, you'll feel good from other things other than the drug. People that are drug addicted, because the truth is, why am I comparing drug with sexuality? Because a big part of the brain that works with sexuality is the same part of the brain which works with the drugs. Many have said this, the reptilian core and this kind of things in the brain and the... Yes, one second, let me just see it. So, do you see the point? I'm saying there's two ways. You can either reduce or you can increase. What we can do, therefore, a good therapeutic method for somebody who's suffering from homosexual shahwat is to wean them off their behaviors. Clearly. You offer them alternatives and you wean them off the behaviors like any other drug. If someone wants to stop doing any behavior, you wean them off and offer them an alternative. And yes, you remind them of the consequences. We said, I've got a new acronym for you, how to deal with the homosexuals. C is for consequences, and we said that that's hereafter and dunya. We said A is for alternatives, and we explained the mechanics behind this. And then the third thing is very important, is purpose. Because which is P, yeah? P for purpose, which is when you offer them a purpose now, you've got to give them a reason, you've got to give anybody a reason for doing anything at all. And if you give someone a strong enough reason, they'll stop. Like, for example, if I say, if you do this whole, if you call your boyfriend, sorry, I'm not, somebody's going to take this out of context. But if I say, let's just say, I get a gun in someone's head and say, if you call your girlfriend, I will shoot your head.
If you call her?
If you call her. Let me give you a more explicit example, because I want you to remember this. Imagine you you are just about to engage in zina. Sorry to say, not you, somebody else. Yani, or you're just about to watch something haram on the internet, just about to watch pornography or something like that. Yes, you're very excited, your sympathetic nervous system, your heart racing, you're ready to do it. You're gonna watch it. Now someone comes into the door, boom, puts the gun in your head. In 2 seconds, you know what's gonna happen? All of your shahwat are gonna go. Why? Because the situation, the fear has overpowered your shahwat. I'm saying to you, if there's a will, there's a way. Yani if you can do it in that context, you can do it in any context. So it's a matter of motivation, therefore. Because fear produces a motivational drive. I'm saying that you can produce the same motivational drive without the extraneous variable. It's going to be hard. No one's going to say it's going to be easy. But the fact that it's possible is also that someone needs to know. 1 second, let me just finish this, yeah? Because the Sheikh also wants to get involved in it, yeah? So we said C is for what? Consequences. What's A for? Alternatives. Very important. What's P for? Purpose. And there's another P, CAPP with 2 P's, yeah? The other P is purification. Because one of the things which are the fitrah of the human being is that he wishes to be purified. Yani, let me give you an example. Most of you, I don't know about the service of this hotel for you guys, but for us, we've had a problem with people haven't cleaned the rooms. Put your hands up if your rooms have been cleaned. No, if they have been cleaned. This is a problem, isn't it? We should go and do a major complaint. But that's aside the point. No, I'm being serious. But no, I'm saying, how do you feel about that? You feel very upset about that, don't you? You go to somewhere where you see dirty on the floor, this and that, your towel is over there, your this and that, your trousers here. No one, bil fitrah, there's good evidence to show that no one likes to be in a dirty and messy environment. No one likes that. So blacks, therefore the person likes to be cleaned. Yani, we like to clean ourselves, we like to brush our teeth. Brushing our teeth is common to everybody. It's common to every civilization on the face of the earth. I don't know, actually, maybe I shouldn't say, but at least some form of brushing the teeth. Getting rid of bad smells. We don't like good bad smells. We try and, every homosexual in the world will say, I brush my teeth. Not every single one of them, but yeah, you get my point. Why? Because they like to be purified. You see, homosexual has a shower, doesn't he? The person who has shahawat for homosexual desires also has a shower because they want to get the dirt off their bodies. So when you offer purification to people, they take it. If they believe in that purification, what we're offering is not a hissi purification though. What we're offering is a ma'nawi purification. It's a spiritual one. It's a cleaning. You're cleaning. We're saying, because when you bring the purification, we don't bring that enough. A tahliya or tahliya, and these things. We need to, and the Quran is mali with these kind of things. You see, it's like tazkiyah. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. He's already succeeded the one who has purified themselves. So we offer them purification. And this is very important. So I'm going to let the Sheikh do the hadith, okay? This is CAPP, just remember those ones, and then I'll finish soon, inshallah, yeah? Tfadal, Sheikh.
Jazakallah
Brothers, we will take a break inshallah from Sheikh Mohammed's class, and Sheikh Ibrahim here will give us the same thing as he gave us yesterday, a hadith from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, lineage to Sheikh Ibrahim, and then he will give it to us inshallah as a sanad, and inshallah hopefully we will get a certificate for it.
Or I should also ask, you should be sending like the hadith from the group.
Yes, okay, I will send it inshallah. Okay, 5 minutes inshallah, and then Sheikh Mohammed will continue.
طيب مشايخ، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، إخواني وأخواتي. من فاته أمس الإسناد فيرغب بإسناد الأمس فيأتي ويقرأ من جديد ويبشر بالخير. والذي فاته إسناد اليوم بلغوه أنه غدا إن شاء الله عز وجل يلتقي بي ويأخذ الإسناد أيضا مني إن شاء الله عز وجل. طيب استمعوا وأسأل الله عز وجل أن ينفع بكم الإسلام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على النبي الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. حدثني شيخنا الدكتور عبد الله بن ناجي المخلافي قال حدثنا عبد الرحمن بن أبي بكر الملا الأحسائي قال أخبرنا عمر بن حمدان المحرسي قال أخبرنا فالح بن محمد الظاهري قال أخبرنا محمد بن علي السنوسي قال أخبرنا الجمال بن عبد الحفيظ العجيمي قال أخبرنا محمد بن عبد الغفور السندي قال أخبرنا عيد بن علي النمرسي البرسلي قال أخبرنا محمد البهوتي الحنبلي قال أخبرنا المعمر بن عبد الرحمن البهوتي الحنبلي قال أخبرنا نجم الدين الغيطي قال أخبرنا الجلال السيوطي قال أخبرنا أبو الطيب أحمد بن محمد الحجازي الأديب قال أخبرنا مجد الدين إسماعيل بن إبراهيم الحنفي قال أخبرنا الحافظ أبو سعيد العلائي قال أخبرنا أبو العباس أحمد بن محمد بن حامد الأرموي قال أخبرنا أبو القاسم عبد الرحمن بن مكي الإسكندري قال أخبرنا أبو طاهر أحمد بن محمد الحافظ السلفي قال أخبرنا الشريف أبو الفضل محمد بن عبد السلام بن أحمد الأنصاري وأبو سعد محمد بن عبد الكريم بن محمد بن خشيش قال الأول أخبرنا أبو القاسم. الأول من هو؟ الأول هو الشريف. قال أخبرنا أبو القاسم عبد الرحمن بن عبيد الله بن عبد الله الحرفي السمسار. وقال أبو سعد هذا الثاني أخبرنا أبو علي الحسن بن أحمد بن إبراهيم بن شاذان البزاز قال أخبرنا أبو بكر أحمد بن سلمان النجاد الفقيه قال أخبرنا أبو بكر ابن أبي الدنيا قال حدثنا الحسن بن عبد العزيز الجروي قال حدثني عمرو ابن أبي سلمة التنيسي قال حدثنا أبو عبدة الحكم ابن عبدة قال حدثني حيويه ابن شريح ابن عقبة ابن مسلم عن أبي عبد الرحمن الحبلي عن الصنابحي عن ابن عاد عن معاذ ابن جبل رضي الله عنه قال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم صلوا عليه إني أحبك يا معاذ فقل اللهم أعني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. قال الصنابحي قال لي معاذ بن جبل رضي الله عنه إني أحبك فقل اللهم أعني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. قال أبو عبد الرحمن قال لي الصنابحي وأنا أحبك فقل اللهم أعني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. وهكذا قال كل واحد منهم هذا الكلام. وأنا أحبكم في الله فقولوا اللهم أعني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. بهذا أجزتكم بهذا الحديث عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فأسندوه لمن بعدكم وتأخذون الإسناد إن شاء الله عز وجل غدا في الحفل من أخونا عيسى جزاه الله خير. الحديث الأول والحديث الثاني. الحديث الأول مسلسل بماذا؟ من يقول؟ السؤال
بالأولية.
مسلسل بالأولية. كلهم قال أول حديث سمعته منه لكن الآن فاتكم أنتم ما تستطيعون. ليس أول حديث لكم سمعتوا الحديث الثاني. والحديث الثاني هذا مسلسل بماذا؟ المسلسل بالمحبة. طبعا الشيخ أستاذنا في الحديث الله. هذا المسلسل بالمحبة. والأول المسلسل بالأولية. نفع الله بكم الإسلام وزادكم علما وفضلا وهنيئا لكم الأسانيد إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. فمن أراد أن يزيد فليبشر. بارك الله فيكم ونفع الله بكم الإسلام. شكرا لكم. جزاكم الله. طبعا الأخوة والأخوات أجزتكم بهذا. من أراد الشيخ يقول أريد الأربعين نووية جزاه الله خير. من أراد الأربعين نووية أو أي حديث يخطر على باله فيبشر بإسناده. نفع الله بكم. حياكم الله شيخ. الحديث الثاني؟ لا أبشر. أنت لك حديث خاص. سنده عالي. نفع الله. جزاك الله. الله يحفظك. الله ينفع بكم الإسلام. طيب يا أخوة نلتقي في غدا في جدة
إن شاء الله شيخنا.
الله يحييكم. مجهزين لكم أشياء في جدة فوق الخيال.
جدا خير.
الله يسعدك. بس ناموا بدري عشان تصحصحون هناك. الله يسعدك. السلام عليكم.
Can you translate
Yeah, so
for some of us?
the hadith you guys done yesterday was irhamu min fil ardi yarhamkum min fis sama, right?
الراحمون يرحمهم الرحمن.
Yeah, so this is be merciful to the ones on the earth, and the one in the heaven will be merciful to you. Yeah, which is a very powerful hadith actually, because it even includes, it's men, it's al-umum, includes Muslims, non-Muslims, animals, everything. It's min al-fadl al-umum, so it's men, it's min al-fadl al-umum, it's a generics. Yarhamu men fil ardi yarhamkum min fis sama. And this one is one which we recite after the prayers actually, which is first of all Mu'adh bin Jabal, who was one of the Sahabis. He came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said to him, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him that I love you, O Mu'adh. So he said, Uhibbuka ya Mu'adh. And then he said, say the following: Allahumma inni ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. That Allah keep me steadfast on dhikrik, on your remembrance or your mentioning. Wa shukrik, which we were talking about today, which your gratitude, wa husni ibadatik, and a perfect or the excellent way in which we can worship you. So that's the hadith, inshallah. We're nearly finished with the surah. I don't want to.
Is it Sahih Bukhari, and do you know the number? Or?
I don't know the number, akhi. No. Okay, to be honest with you, numbers are different depending on the nuskha anyway. So numbers are not. It's not like the verse and thing. But I think this is muttafaqun alayh. I think it's in Bukhari and Muslim, but you can double check. The other one, yarhamu man fil ardi yarhamkum man fis sama', I don't know. I think it might be Tirmidhi or something, but you can double check as well. Oh yeah, we can ask.
Is this based on books or is it just a general narration?
Well, basically these hadiths are basically like, there's lots of them. There's like which bil musafaha, like sometimes the sheikh would teach the student, and he say, I'll shake your hand, and so shaking his hand, and then the person shakes the other guy's hand, and it goes on like that until our times. There's bil mahabba, bil awwaliyya, the one you done yesterday, and there's lots like that. Yeah. Anyway, we move on. So just to repeat, what was the acronym that we just learned?
CAPP.
All right, who wants to, brother? Go on, tell us.
I was just thinking about America, like.
I know. Well, what does it stand for? What does it stand for? What is the camera back on? Yeah. Is it back on? Yeah. All right, so go on.
Oh, for all of it?
Yeah. What is
consequences, alternatives, purpose, and purification.
Beautiful. I think, wallahi, if you do that, it will be enough for you. Because imagine, Allah, this is what Lut done, and Allah, He kind of sanctioned. Because it's beautiful that we can see that Allah, He affirmed that this is enough da'wah for them. He said He did warn them. Allah is affirming that what Lut done was enough. فَتَمَارَوْا بِالنُّذُرِ. In fact, He's putting the blame on them. They're the ones now, you put all of this on them, and they say we don't want it. It's like I don't want to make too many examples because this is a sensitive topic. وَلَقَدْ صَبَّحَهُمْ بُكْرَةً عَذَابٌ مُسْتَقِرٌ. And early on the morrow, what kind of translation is this? Anyway, an abiding punishment seized them. Okay. فَذُوقُوا عَذَابِي وَنُذُرْ. So taste my wrath and my warning. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. We're nearly finished, by the way. Do you want to ask? Yeah, go ask now. Go.
Yeah, I was going to ask because going back to the Prophet Lut about his da'wah, one can argue or make an argument saying that Prophet Lut he was with the people of Lut for how long?
We don't know.
So they were for a couple of years, if not longer.
Okay.
But then again, how many followers did he have back? That was another question. Then can someone say, but maybe his da'wah wasn't effective then? How would you reconcile with that?
I think I missed an ayah, by the way. I think I did miss an ayah because I'm just thinking now. Did I say وَلَقَدْ رَاوَدُوهُ عَنْ ضَيْفِهِ فَطَمَسْنَا عَيْنَهُمْ فَذُوقُوا عَذَابِ النَّارِ. Did I say that?
No.
I haven't said that, did I? Yeah, وَلَقَدْ رَاوَدُوهُ عَنْ ضَيْفِهِ فَطَمَسْنَا. I missed an ayah. Sorry. Let me just mention that.
No.
Because this kind of helps with your answer. And they sought to snatch away his guests. Now, who are his guests? Who remembers what his guests are? The angels that came. Now, it's beautiful because in the previous surah we talked about an angel, which is Angel Gabriel, and in fact he was described as being pure from all defects, talking about purification. Now imagine you have three angels in the form of men who came to Lut's house, and these guys, the first thing they thought about is, I want to have intercourse with this guy. What kind of behavior is that? Yeah? That's not even normal. You saw someone walking in the streets and they're very well, imagine how angels would be presented. Yeah? Very clean, very perfect. Yeah? And their adab must be like the khuluq, beautiful khuluq, adab stuff. You see someone even now if you see someone presenting themselves in a very respectable way, the last thing you'll do is say, something like that. that is not normal, akhi. Like they have objectified the men. Look, in fact, do you know we talk about objectification of women? It's true. Women are objectified, unfortunately, in today's society. But especially in homosexual circles, men are also objectified. Don't forget, if you think about it, if men are prone to objectification and then they're attracted to other men, then objectification continues. So the first thing they think about is sexual opportunities. They don't look at men, they look at them as sexual opportunities. And they are angels. And this is actually is interesting for women who get harassed and stuff. That even the angels were sexually harassed. Can you think about that?
Wait, who?
By the angels that came to the house of Lut. They were, and how did Lut? He was very, very troubled by that. How did he respond to it? He was shocked by it, even by his standards. What they're doing, which, by the way, it shows you that we think LGBTQ and homosexuality is a new phenomenon. It really isn't. This is a good evidence that it's not. It's always been there in history. But by the way, I want to make another point since we're on this topic, and it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. You know how in modern explanations, biological explanations, they use evolutionary psychology. A lot of the time they say, this has happened because of this evolutionary reason and that evolution. What is the evolutionary reason for this? If you think about it, this behavior is not even explicable on an evolutionary level. It doesn't help with reproduction, it doesn't help with survivability. These are the two things. Why would you need to do this? You see the point? So it's an anomalous kind of behavior. If you think about to go into these angels and ask them sexual opportunities, they're gone now. They're finished. They have shahwa. They're addicted. They don't see humans anymore. Because a lot of people, it's so ironic, isn't it, that one of the greatest criticisms of these stories, both in the Old Testament and in the Quran, is that look, they dehumanize homosexuals. No, actually, in these stories, the homosexuals were dehumanizing other men. And then they were dehumanized as a result. Yes?
When you say sexual opportunities, it almost seems, the second part, I think, of that verse or something, is that when they come to Sayyidina Lut's house, they're not asking for permission. They're literally saying, we're snatching these people against their will, whether they like it or not. So this is not even looking at it as we start talking to them, there could be an opportunity. No, it's whether they like it or not, we're going to be doing this. So it's a crime, it's rape.
And it's sexual entitlement to the highest level. And by the way, this crime is not left the minds of people I'm going to get it, whether I'm not going to take no for an answer.
Exactly.
What do you mean I'm not going to take no for an answer? It's not your right, It's not your body, it's their body, their choice, It's even their angels, So to say, what we do? Yes?
So there was a time when basically the person said that they looked up this article that had said that these ayat were about rape but not necessarily about homosexuality.
No, but then there's other ayat which, أَنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالَ شَهْوَةً مِنْ دُونِ النِّسَاءِ. This is not talking about rape here in that ayat. أَنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالَ وَتَقَطَعُونَ السَّبِيلَ وَتَأْتُونَ فِي نَادِيكُمُ الْمُنْكَرِ. It's actually more than one time it's mentioned. One Surah Al-Ankabut, Surah Hud, Surah Hud is mentioned. Different places here. So this is very weak. Because then they would not be able to answer all of these things.
The guy made a whole book about it.
Huh?
The guy made a whole book about it.
Yeah, I know. The liberal guy, I forget his name. I read that book as well. It's laughable, really.
I thought so too.
وَلَقَدْ صَبَّحْهُمْ بُكْرَةً عَذَابٌ مُسْتَقِرٌ. And they, early on the morrow, an abiding punishment seized them. فَذُوقُوا عَذَابِي وَنُذُرْ. So taste my wrath and warning. You must taste it, because seeing it, hearing it is no longer a thing for you. Now you must feel it. Now you must feel it. That's the only recourse with you. We tried our best. We brought a prophet. In fact, Lut was connected to who? Which of the prophets? Yes. How was he? Does anyone know the connection?
Cousin?
Cousin.
Some say there's
So to be honest, I was asking because I don't know the answer myself. Exactly. You know, he was connected to him from either cousin or.
nephew. Say that about
He was his nephew. Yeah, I've heard that as well. But I have to make sure of it. Yeah. But yeah, you see, that's another thing. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُمْ. Now we're going to move to the next. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَ لَفِرْعَوْنَ النُّذُرُ. To the people of Pharaoh came warners. كذبوا بآياتنا كلها فأخذناهم أخذ عزيز مقتدر. The people rejected all our signs, but we seized them with such a penalty as comes from one exalted in power, able to carry out his will. It's a very wordy translation, Yusuf Ali, but it's good, yeah. They imagine how many ayat they were given. In Surah Al-Naml, it mentions it's 9. 9 ayat. It's actually 9 major ones that they were given. The splitting of the sea, the hand coming out. Imagine seeing all of that, and you know it's not the magician stuff, because the magicians came and done sajda. The top magicians have done sajda, everything, and then you're still rejecting everything. Why? Because you're arrogant. That is the top reason why you're doing it. أَكُفَّارُكُمْ خَيْرٌ مِّنْ أُولَٰئِكُمْ أَمْ لَكُمْ بَرَاءَةٌ فِي الزُّبُرِ. Are your unbelievers better than they are, or have you immunity in the sacred books? So basically Allah now is speaking to the people of Quraysh. Is the people of Quraysh, are you guys better than them? Yani, do you think you did better than them? Meaning their civilization was better than yours actually. Or it could mean that yani, you're the same in kufr. You're kafir, that's it. That's what it means. أَكُفَّارُكُمْ خَيْرٌ مِّنْ أُولَٰئِكُمْ. Are you guys, do you think you're really better than these guys? You're the same. Kafir. You rejected the Prophet, you rejected the Prophet. You're walking around, strutting around thinking that you're stable in finances and in civilization. They did the same. They had a major one as well. Pharaoh was arrogant, you guys are arrogant. And therefore, don't think you're any different. أَمْ يَقُولُونَ نَحْنُ جَمِيعًا مُنْتَصِرٌ. Or did I say, we can act together to defend ourselves? سَيُهْزَمُ الْجَمْعُ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرَ. This سَيُهْزَمُ الْجَمْعُ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرَ is referring to the Battle of Badr. And this is actually a prophecy. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq would mention this, okay, when he was in the tents before the Battle of Badr. He would say, سَيُهْزَمُ الْجَمْعُ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرَ. He would continuously repeat it. He's basically saying that in the Battle of Badr, you guys are going to run away. The Quran is saying that you guys are going to lose this battle. Bear in mind, this didn't come about in Uhud. This is a prediction of the Quran. It's a very dangerous prediction. See, the brother's wearing a Moroccan t-shirt, yeah? So for example, if I, right before the Morocco match with Portugal, yes, I say Morocco is going to beat Portugal. It's a big claim, actually. They had Cristiano Ronaldo, although he was almost finished his career and all those kind of things. It's a big claim. If they win, that's a big. I was shocked when they scored that goal. I went into a euphoric mode. That I was absolutely ecstatic. I couldn't believe it, because we don't have. It's the first time an Arab team, or an African team has reached the semi-finals of the World Cup. It's a big deal. There's 300 people fighting 1,000. It's the betting favorites are the kuffar, the pagans. On paper, it's a 3-1 underdog or something. I don't know what, something like that. The Quran is سَيُهْزَمُ الْجَمْعَ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرَ, and the Sahaba understood that as we are going to be victorious in Badr. And he was saying it. He was, by the way, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, whenever there's so wallahi, this shows you the faith the man has. Whenever there's a prediction of the Quran, he comes out and he's so happy about it. He knows what it means. Like for example, with the غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ وَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ غَلَبِهِمْ سَيَغْلِبُونَ فِي بِضْعِ سِنِينَ لِلَّهِ الْأَمْرُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَمِنْ بَعْدُ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, where it says that the Romans have beaten the Persians, and after 3 to 9 years they will come and they'll beat them again. He went, because at that time gambling was not haram, because gambling became haram later on. He took all of his camels and money and he said, he went to find somebody to put, because remember what we said last time? We said that if the fortune tellers were true fortune tellers, where would they be? In the casino. And subhanAllah, where was Abu Bakr? He was in the casino, akhi. I'm not saying he was in the casino like that, but it was halal. He went and he said, this is my money. He put all his cash into it. He believed it. This shows you that the Sahaba, they believed the religion of Islam. But it also shows you that the dangerous level of the predictions of the Quran. They're all dangerous. The predictions of the Quran are so dangerous. Because if you get this wrong, your whole prophethood or the claimant to prophethood is put into question. Imagine I'm saying I'm going to beat you guys in a... How could you know? How do you know they're going to win? How do you know? You are the betting underdogs. It is too dangerous to say you're going to win and to connect that with revelation. Wallahi, a true prophet does this. A false prophet never does this. And if a false prophet does this, he always gets caught out. Like this Ghulam Ahmad. Ghulam Ahmad is a man who claimed to be a prophet after the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And then you have a group called the Ahmadis. And he said, I am going to marry a woman. Her name is Muhammadi Begum. That's what he said. Imagine this. He goes, and listen, he got excited because he's in love now, yeah? Listen to what he said. He goes, if I don't marry her, I'm not a true prophet. He went that far, Akhi, do you know what happened to him? He didn't marry her. Akhi, that's it. You're finished. It's done. Ghulam Ahmad is done. It's finished. But on the flip side, whenever the Quran makes a prediction about a future event, it happens exactly as it's mentioned. And the Sahaba are so, especially Abu Bakr, because he is a Siddiq, he is so ecstatic and excited about the situation, he goes and puts all his money on the situation. He's willing to put his life on the line actually for it. Abu Bakr Siddiq, he went to Badr, and he had to fight his son in the battlefield. This is the level of belief he had. His son was in the same battlefield as that. And then his son became Muslim thereafter. And then, his son said to him in a hadith, I have to look at the authenticity of it. He goes, Dad, we're in the battlefield. I was trying to avoid you, Do you know what he said? He said, I was trying to look for you. I was trying to find you. This is the next level of faith. لا يجد قوم يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر يودون من حاد الله ورسوله. You don't find somebody who really believes in Allah, who love the ones who go against Allah and His Messenger. He had the true belief. He doesn't care that he loved Allah and the Messenger more than his children, more than his wives, more than everybody. This is the highest level after the prophets. So he was saying this ayah and he was excited. He was like, after the Prophet Muhammad, he was the most excited person after because he knew what's going to happen. It was a big victory and it's one of the biggest victories of Islam. It was a small skirmish, only a few people died comparative to the wars that happen today. But it was so symbolic that it changed the course of history as we know it. بل الساعة موعدهم والساعة أدهى وأمر. That the hour is their maw'id. Allahu Akbar. Because whenever Allah makes a prediction, or not every single time, but commonly, He connects it to the sa'ah. In Surah Al-Rum, He done that. After He said, وَعْدَ اللَّهِ لَا يُخْلِفُ اللَّهُ وَعْدًا, and then He started connected to the afterlife now. He's saying, just like I predicted this thing, which is so dangerous to predict, which no other book predicted, C.S. Lewis, who wrote, a very famous Christian guy, he was talking about something in the Bible called the Olivet Discourse. It's a passage in the book of Mark, which said that the whole world will end in one generation. And do you know what he called it? He said this. He said it's the most embarrassing verse in the Bible. C.S. Lewis, almost all Christians know who he is. He is the biggest figure, Christian scholar in the 20th century. Bar none. No doubt about it. When I went to the University of Oxford, his pictures were everywhere.
Who is it, sorry?
C.S. Lewis.
The guy who wrote Narnia, the Chronicles of Narnia?
No. He actually wrote, by the way, C.S. Lewis, I believe, this formulation is either deluded or deceptive or a liar, or he's speaking the truth. A lot of it, I think he took this from Quran, because he put that in his book. He had like an apologetic material talking about why he believes Christianity is true. He also mentions, by the way, that the resurrection is the biggest evidence and the miracles are the biggest evidence. C.S. Lewis also mentions those things. Point I'm making is that he's one of the biggest figures, and he is saying we have a verse in the Bible which is trying to tell us the future, and it is the most embarrassing verse in the Bible. Why is it embarrassing? C.S. Lewis. It's embarrassing because got it wrong. The Bible got it wrong. And this is one of the biggest scholars that is universally accepted. Catholics accept him and Protestants accept him. You rarely find a unifying figure like this guy. And he is admitting candidly and openly this verse, the Olivet Discourse. You can check it online. Wikipedia pages and all written on it. Is the most embarrassing verse in the Bible. We don't have like that in the Quran. That's why our book, we were talking about memorization. We were talking about, but this is why our book is the best. It's the truth. It's too much. Wallahi, when you compare it, it's khalas, it's done. The deal is done. If someone is sincere, the evidences, and as we said, the evidences in the Quran are better than the evidences that any of the prophets have been given before. Because those evidences were what? Time bound. They favored those who saw them, and so on. Whereas the Quran can be examined today. We have a retrospective, hindsight perspective, where we can look back and say, well, let's look at the predictions of the Quran. We see all of them are actually true. We see all of them are not only true, but they're dangerous as well, in the first place, to make. And then, إِنَّ الْمُجْرِمِينَ فِي ضَلَالٍ وَسُعْرٍ. That certainly those who are in sin, or the criminals, are straying in mind and mad. Remember, they were accusing the Prophet of this. Allah is now saying they're projecting, it's them that have this problem. It's not the Prophet Muhammad, it's you guys that you're the mad ones. يَوْمَ يُسْحَبُونَ فِي النَّارِ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ ذُوقُوا مَسَّ سَقَرَ. They will be pulled on their faces in the hellfire. Taste the punishment of the hellfire. They will be just like the people of Noah, and the people of Lut, and the people of Ad, and the people of Thamud, and the people of Fir'aun. All of them, you're going to be like, inshallah. But those guys who belie the message are going to be just like them. They're going to be burning and in pain and agony. Yes. This is not a joking, laughing matter. Wallahi, this is a serious. And they will taste it. Inna kulla shay'in khalaqnahu biqadar. Qadar here means proportion and measure, although it has been translated as predestination by Muhsin Khan. وَمَا أَمْرُنَا إِلَّا وَاحِدَةٌ كَلَمْحٍ بِالْبَصَرِ. And our command is not just but one command, like a twinkling of the eye. وَلَقَدْ أَهْلَكْنَا أَشْيَعَكُمْ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. And we have destroyed the gangs. What kind of translation? Let me change it. The gangs. And indeed we have destroyed your likes in the past. And will there be any remember? Will any of you remember? Just look at the books that are written on civilization, the rise and fall of great empires. Where are the Romans? Where are the Greeks? Where are the Egyptians? Where are these great civilizations? Where have they gone now? The Roman Empire was in Italy the other day, and I was looking at the Colosseum and looking at the museum upstairs and this kind of thing. I said, look at these people now. Where are they now? Where are they now? And the Julius Caesar and this one. Where are you now? I can't even see your grave. Napoleon came, what's his name? No, sorry, Mussolini. He changed the architecture outside of the Colosseum. He messed everything up. He made himself the center of attention. Where is Mussolini? Where's Hitler? Where are most of the presidents of the United States of America? They're all finished, actually. They're all done. And that is the reality. وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ فَعَلُوهُ فِي الزُّبُرِ. And each and every thing they have done is noted in the record of deeds. وَكُلُّ صَغِيرٍ وَكَبِيرٍ مُسْتَطَرٍ. Everything big and small is written in Lawh al-Mahfuz. إِنَّ الْمُتَّقِينَ فِي جَنَّاتٍ وَنَهَرٍ. That certainly the pious ones will be in gardens and rivers. فِي مَقْعَدِ صِدْقٍ عِنْدَ مَلِكٍ مُقْتَدِرٍ. In a seat of truth in paradise near the omnipotent King, the Most High. And then in the next surah, which we're not going to be doing together, but there's more discussion in the beginning about heaven and less about hell. So it kind of inverts the situation, and this is part of the symmetry of the Quran. In one surah it talks more about hell than heaven, and the other one more heaven than hell, and it kind of all weighs itself up. Jazakumullahu khairan. I know it's been 2 hours actually. It's been, as we said it would be. Any questions? Any questions? Yes.
Can you just answer his question about the compilation of the Quran?
Yes.
It's compiled like on purpose.
So basically, there's two views among the scholars. Yeah, are the surah of the Quran, are they put in place like that from the Sahaba, or are they put like that from Allah and the Messenger, and it was something tawqifi? So there's a khilaf. Some say it's tawqifi, some say actually the Sahaba put it in that order. The truth of the matter is, either way, it doesn't really matter. Because let me just give you an example of what this means. Let's say, for example, you have, the jigsaw puzzle. A jigsaw puzzle is made up of a certain way, whatever. Whether it's already pre-made, i.e. in the case of tawqif, or whether the Sahaba had to figure out where to put what, it doesn't really matter because the jigsaw remains the same either way. And so the Quran in Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz is as it is now. The fact that it's capable of being structured in this way is evidence that it's structurally coherent. Now the second thing I'll say is, I actually do believe it was tawqifi. I believe that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he was told by the angel Gabriel what to put what in what order. Now for sure we know that's the case with the surah, with the ayat, that is ijma and ijma actually. For example, you find these famous hadiths that if you read the first 10 ayahs of Surah Al-Kahf, last 10 ayahs, how do you know what's the first 10 or the last 10? Unless the Prophet ﷺ himself, he told us where it was going to go where. And in fact, some ahadith are like that. If you read for example, Al-Imran and Baqarah, okay, there are surahs that are combined together in hadiths. If you read this hadith and that hadith, if you read this surah and this surah together, so it would seem like it was tawqifi. And don't forget, the Prophet ﷺ would be given the Quran as a whole in Ramadan, and he would recite it in Al-Ard al-Akhira. What order did he put it? If there is too much evidence to show us that he put it in the order that we're reciting now. So those who say it's not kufr to believe that the Sahabas put it in that order, but I think the overwhelming weight of evidence is on the other side. Yeah. And even if it wasn't the case, it still was like that either way in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. And it's like a jigsaw puzzle, and it's like what I've just mentioned. Yeah? Anything else? Yes, sister.
I have a question to something you said earlier. Why is there something rather than nothing? I want to ask if you can give more extensive answer to that, because I have a lot of people who ask, especially in philosophical discourse, why. I mean, obviously God doesn't need us to worship Him, but why did He make us and other creatures and wants us basically to worship Him? Because even atheists agree that an all-powerful and self-sufficient God doesn't need us to worship Him. So why? What's the reason that God made anything?
Yeah, so it seems like there's two in one in there. So the question of why is there something rather than nothing is important for an atheist to think about, because the existence of something cries out for an explanation. If you have anything in existence, the question is, from whence did it come? How did it get there? What is generating it? What is its cause? The fact that you have something rather than nothing, you're going to have to ask these questions. Where did it come from? How did it get there? And these questions in themselves are a catalyst to start thinking about the first cause, the ultimate cause, or the idea of God. So that's the first thing. That's why it's a very important question to ask. On the second point that you made about why does God need us to kind of worship Him? So obviously we don't believe that He does. Allah says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ رِزْقٍ وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَن يُطْعِمُونَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الرَّزَّاقُ ذُو الْقُوَّةِ الْمَتِينُ. So basically Allah says that we have not created the jinn and the human beings except that they may worship me. I don't need them to, I don't need any provision from them, nor do I need them to feed me. Yeah, meaning I'm not gaining from this. Allah is not gaining from us worshipping Him. And then Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الرَّزَّاقُ. He is in fact the one who gives. ذُو الْقُوَّةِ الْمَتِينُ, the very powerful agent. Now, the question is, why would Allah create us? To understand why Allah would do anything, we have to look at the attributes of God. So if you look at the attributes of God, what are the attributes of God? Of them is that He's Al-Khaliq and He's Al-Khallaq, He's Ahsan Al-Khaliqeen, He's the best of creators, He is the perpetually creating, and He is the creator in general. These are some of His attributes. He is Al-Alim, He is the all-knowing, He is Al-Hakim, He is the wise. So what the question is, does it or does it not befit an agent with these characteristics to do that which these characteristics entails? Like for example, if I say I'm a painter, but what's the evidence of your painting? I have no evidence. I have not painted a single painting. The point is that it makes sense for the creator, and who is the best of creators, to create. To create what? The best of creation. You see? The idea of a human species which has free will, which can decide what's right and wrong, which is living in an environment where it has to cooperate, where it has to make decisions, that is the best possible idea of a creation. So amazing it is that we don't even know how this stuff works. The mechanisms of how does determinism work with free will, how does Allah determine, it boggles the mind. That's how powerful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation is. So in other words, the reason why Allah creates is because it's a manifestation of His attributes. It's a manifestation of His attributes to create, because He is the creator. It only makes sense for Him to create, and not only for Him to create, but to create something which is the best of creation, because He's the best creator. So the point I'm making is that, it's not just His creative capacity, but other attributes. It's a manifestation. Anything that is a creation, anything that Allah has put into existence, its ultimate explanation is that it manifests one of God's attributes in some way, shape or form. Does that make sense? Okay. If not, just think about it. And again, yeah.
Would that be like the same explanation for why we all don't go to heaven? Like, because some people are like, oh, if God is so merciful, and if God is so this and that, like the positive attributes, why doesn't He just send you all to heaven? Would that be the same explanation? Like,
the thing is, basically the problem of evil, right?
Yeah.
The problem of evil was first put forward by someone called Epicurus. And he said, look, if God is all powerful and He's all good, it doesn't make sense for there to be evil in the world, because if there's evil in the world, that means he could have removed it from His power.
Yeah.
Or He's not actually all good. But we don't believe in a God with 2 or 3 attributes.
Yeah.
We also believe Allah is Al-Hakim. He is the all-wise. He is Al-Adl. He's got other attributes. Now the point is the Hakim aspect of God's attributes is, what is Hikmah? Hikmah is wad'u ash-shay fi makanihi sahih. It's putting something in its rightful place. In opposition to dhulm, which is the opposite of Hikmah actually. Dhulm is linguistically the opposite of Hikmah. Dhulm is wad'u ash-shay fi ghayri makanihi sahih. Putting something in its wrongful place. What I'm saying therefore is, it doesn't negate God's wisdom for Him to put people in hell. If an atheist says this to me, I find it almost laughable. In fact, some philosophers, William Rowe, for example, atheist, he's an atheist, he said that I don't believe in. He said this problem of evil argument is is intellectually bankrupt. Even atheists admit that this is a nonsense argument, because there's no corollary, there's no, it's a non sequitur. It's a non sequitur. It doesn't follow that just because God is good that there should be no pain or suffering. And I would say to an atheist, what is evil anyway? Are you not the one who says God doesn't exist because you can't find some scientific evidence for Him? So what is this evil that you've got that you can put under a microscope that I can see it with you in the laboratory? Because He won't be able to find such a thing. So in other words, evil doesn't exist. There's no evidence that evil exists at all, actually. What is evil? Evil is what you don't like. Evil is the suffering that you have. What's the difference between pain and suffering? Pain is the sensory information that you get, but suffering is what you make of that sensory information. If I do 10 press-ups right now, it will, maybe not 10, maybe 20 or 30. Let's say 40 for the sake of argument. No, but let's just say, I'll consider it painful. Let's just say I'll consider it painful. But would I call it suffering? Like for example, when I went up to this Jabal today, I consider that pain and suffering. Because I thought no, but really is it suffering though? What's suffering? Suffering is what your mind makes of the pain. So the point is that, look, the evil and suffering in the world, suffering is a test, If you consider it as a test, if you go to the gym, you consider it as, I'm improving myself, self-improvement. You don't say, I'm suffering. Oh, please don't. Oh, stop. Why is God doing this to me? No one does it. But no, it's the same concept though. Do you see? It's the same concept. Allah is putting you through an adverse condition so you can develop yourself. So that's, there's no argument there. And I think they admit it. They admit the problem of evil, there's no actual argument there. Any other questions? Especially from the sister side, because I don't want you guys to miss out as well. Yes?
Yeah, so this CAPP methodology, doesn't it actually work for any dopamine-related shahwat?
Yeah.
Any kind of visceral, because it's the same pathway. Like, for example, you increase it, then you're falling into it, like pornography.
Yes.
You decrease it, you wean yourself off of it, then...
Yeah, but find an alternative. The alternative is marriage, you know?
Yeah.
There you go. So that's what the limitation is. Sometimes you can't find the alternative, you see. But you have to try and wait. And the alternative for by the way, the alternative for, sorry to say, but excessive masturbation, if you're not and pornography is not marriage. It's actually wet dreams, because the body has a way of flushing all that stuff out. The fasting is not really an alternative. It's more, it helps. Yani, obviously, the Prophet Saleh's advice. Yeah, ma'ashar al-shabab, man istata'a minkum al-ba'a falyatazawwaj, and so on. But what I'm saying is that, your body will find a way to get rid of this stuff. Yeah. But eventually you have to get, not you have to, but you should get married, obviously. And by the way, let's be real. Some people get married and they still have these addictions. So you kind of have to work on yourself, because some people are addicted to this thing and they think, I'm going to get married, everything's going to be alright. They get married and they continue the stuff. Why? Because you've already programmed yourself to this thing. So you kind of have to purify yourself, you have to work on yourself, you have to monitor yourself, you have to hold yourself to account. You have to work on it. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes?
Actually, not really questions. Inshallah, I want to have a long discussion with you.
Yes?
About the whole LGBT thing.
Oh, okay. Well, we had a very long discussion today, isn't it?
Oh, well, more technical.
Yeah, that's fine. But we can have more. It's fine. Anything else? Huh?
Okay.
It's all good, yeah? You guys are tired. I'm happy that you guys are still awake. I would be asleep if I was you. But actually, if I was hearing me, I'd probably be awake as well. I'm only kidding. Anyways, guys, inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow in Jeddah, right?